We all know that CFOs are getting sticker shocks. Companies are burning through thousands of dollars per employee on AI tokens, realizing that they could have just bought a $5,000 GPU instead. But the answer is not as simple as running your own model on your local machine. It's much more nuanced than that. And it is shifting as AI becomes part of every pull request, every log review, and every business process. So, when does it make sense to self host your AI infrastructure versus trusting OpenAI or Anthropic with your most sensitive data? That's exactly what we are going to unpack in this upcoming series, and especially in today's episode with Rob Hirschfeld, CEO and co founder of RackN. Rob, it's great to have you back on the show.
So it is exciting to be here and be on the AI journey.
Rob, let's start with the question every CTO and CEO or C-level executive is asking right now. Should I run my own AI model or should I just use a SaaS API like OpenAI or Anthropic?
It's complicated and AI evolves, but I do think there is a simple answer here, which is everybody will ultimately be hybrid. And the reason why it's important to make a statement like that is being hybrid frees you up to then decide how you start that journey to be hybrid, but it also lets you prepare to do that work. So if you're just at the beginning of your AI journey and teaching people to use tools and building agents and getting people really invested in the process, choosing one of the AI vendors, using them aggressively and spending a lot of money on tokens is a fantastic way to get started. There's no sense in slowing your journey down. And that's really a critical component for this, right? Teams need to learn how to work and think in this model. And it's going to cost money and burn tokens, but doing that is absolutely essential. What we have found in working with industry, but also in RackN's own journey, is that as you get through that process, you begin to realize that you don't need the most sophisticated models for a lot of work, that there's a lot of background work, there's a lot of automation that becomes LM enabled, that you don't have to have the cutting edge models. You can go back to open models or more limited models. And in those cases, having your own AI capability, your own inference engine, those things make a tremendous difference in offloading AI work and can save you a lot of money. Because I will promise you, if you haven't started this journey yet and you have people using one of the major models, they are going to be spending a lot more money than you expect them to spend.
What is the real decision driver here? When you are sitting with a team trying to figure this out, what factors actually tip the scale one way or the other?
I think that there's a couple of things that people should look at when they make these decisions. And it's not just whether you're hosting the model yourself, but even how you invest in an AI partner in running a frontier model. The goal here to think about is not who has the best model. One, because that's a race and people keep catching up. But a lot of it is actually about how you build organizational model knowledge and information that you feed back into the model. So what we are seeing is that building MCPs, building different types of skills, different types of sort of prompts and context, all of those pieces are absolutely critical for understanding how you want to interact with these systems. So, what you really need to realize is this isn't as simple as who is my trusted partner. That is absolutely essential. You're sharing information and data with these model providers, right? If you can't share any data at all, you don't want to take a risk of trusting, an Anthropic or OpenAI or Google with sensitive information, then you're going to be self-hosting. But if you make that leap and have a trusted partner, one of the things to consider here is that you really want to have a plan where your team is learning and building tools together, where you are teaching the AI to improve. You're teaching what your processes are, what your controls are, how you want things to proceed. You need to give it very deep access. And I don't think that conversation is being had enough. AI empowers individual engineers and everybody in your organization to do more. But if you take the time to have those people share and build skills collaboratively and add information and guardrails and context collaboratively, it's a dramatically accelerative effect. I've seen that firsthand, and it really is a differentiator in how you use AI. And you can't do that if you are taking a little bit of this, a little bit of that strategy. You really need to go all in.
Let's talk about the trade-offs. Data privacy versus convenience, full control versus cost, and if you're in a regulated industry, especially now with all these geopolitical uncertainty around data sovereignty and AI sovereignty, how do you help enterprises think about these competing priorities where they have to decide for one or the other?
We do, especially when they start looking at, can I self-host? So the challenge that we find is that a lot of companies are very used to using cloud, and cloud is not the same as what we see with AI companies and the way you invest with AIs, in part because the costs for cloud, the CFOs might scratch their heads at this statement, but the costs for cloud are much more constrained than the costs for AI models from that perspective. And so it's really important that you are able to look at how you're building these systems out and what you're doing. It is much easier for an AI system to compromise your security, to send data where it's not supposed to be. If you're not using a trusted party, then it's much easier for them to scan or review all the information that you're sending through those models. And it can be very sensitive. If you're doing the work the right way, it will be very sensitive information. And the last thing you want is for any type of sensitive information you have, and I would include your code and your business processes in that list, to be shared or compromised with a third party. So data sovereignty is incredibly important from that perspective. And what we need to be thinking about here is that there are governance boundaries across different countries. There's also elements of making sure that you have the models available and running. So one of the things that we see very quickly with AI, AI automation and people doing governance here, is that the engineers really start to lean in on all these processes and capabilities. If AI is involved in every pull request and every code review and every issue that you have and log reviews and analytics, that analysis quickly becomes a problem for you.
On the data privacy front, what should actually never leave a customer's environment when it comes to AI workloads? Where's the line? Where are we drawing the boundary?
Yeah, that's a very difficult question, because you were asking me how we help advise companies who are trying to build their own AI pieces. And RackN as a bare metal automation provider really helps companies think about how to build their own IT infrastructure for AI processing and inference. And the reason why that's important is because it really helps people assess, can they run their own AI? What questions do they have? Because part of what your question is asking is, can I trust AI providers with my data? And that is an absolutely key first question. Ultimately, the information that you're sending through AI, for it to be valuable for you to use AI, is incredibly sensitive information, right? And I really do want to reinforce something as simple as code that you're using or having somebody write. If you're having AI write custom screens or processes for you, the code that you're writing is actually your business value, even more so than it ever was. And so you need to be understanding that any information that you're sending through AI is likely sensitive to some extent or another, especially if given to a company using AI to do analysis. And so the first question companies ask is, can I do this myself? Right? RackN's here to make sure that they can say yes with confidence to that they can buy infrastructure, run AI hardware, and run their own clusters. However, it is not a turn on instantly type of capability, and you don't have access to the highest reasoning frontier models that are locked behind paywalls and these services. And so what I would really encourage is that when you look at how these systems work, especially as you're building up your AI capabilities and confidence, what you need to do is you do need to figure out which partners you can trust. This is one of the reasons why the whole Anthropic versus DoD issue was so important, is that it really helped signal to market trustworthiness for models and AI companies. And so you need to recognize that whichever company you have a relationship with, you're going to be sending absolutely critical data that has high value. Now, every day that goes by, as you learn to use these tools more and more, two things are going to happen. You're going to have even more valuable data, and you're going to have this challenge of how much of it can I then take over, can I run for myself? Because one of the things that we've seen is that there's definitely a momentum building cycle, and as you build more and more use of AI, you end up being able to consume more AI more quickly. And that flywheel effect is really powerful, but it's going to impact, to your question, data sovereignty. To your first question, it's going to impact your budget also.
Let's get practical. When does self-hosted actually make sense? What are the conditions where running your own model on your own infrastructure is the right move?
It's becoming more and more clear to me, and this is echoed by the conversations that I have. Running your own model makes a ton of sense, even if you have relatively small workloads. So even individual developers are finding that leveraging their local GPUs in their systems has immediate payback. So if you scale just that simple statement of using, the GPU in my PC to offload work from an LLM or a paid service, has an ROI. Companies owning, even small and medium-sized companies owning a AI cluster to offload batch work or routine work or correspondence. A lot of this work doesn't require sophisticated models. It can be done with an open model. Doing that will save dramatic amounts of money as you get higher and higher in the proficiency curve. And to your recurring point, will help protect that data. So you could actually choose to run sensitive information through a completely dedicated model. The challenge is always, there's not as much bare metal expertise. There's hardly any bare metal expertise, and these are incredibly complex systems. That's what we exist to help normalize, so that companies have confidence that they can build, run, and maintain these systems, whether they're, main brand OEMs or off-brand, systems that have been cobbled together, or even new generation ARM-based servers. The challenge is, you're going to be getting servers, you're going to be putting them into use, you're going to really trying to make sure that all of those pieces work. And I keep reinforcing this: time is of the essence. So the days of an IT project taking 18 months to execute because you want to run, your own hybrid IT infrastructure are pretty much gone at this point. They weren't in existence before. We watch companies really miss opportunity windows because they can't execute on projects well enough. But we're getting to a point where the leading edge companies are driving their bare metal infrastructure at incredible paces, right? Our largest AI inferencing and training company account, which is over 40,000 servers doing AI inference workloads. In that case, they rack the servers, they have them on the floor and running as soon as they possibly can. So within hours of that system being delivered, it has to be onboarded, running, and good to go to deliver value for the business. And because they're running at such scale, they actually don't know which vendor, which OEM, which make of systems are going to show up first. So they literally are racking servers, and before they've even finished inventorying them and putting them through their paperwork process, they are trying to get them onboarded and running, which means you have to be prepared to take on an ARM server from NVIDIA or a Dell server, HP Supermicro. It doesn't matter what's showing up on the floor. The appetite, and this is really the key thing, the appetite for improving your AI throughput is just it's bottomless at this point. And that type of urgency really needs to be shaping your AI decisions now, right? Move as fast as you can on learning and building the skills to have an AI-enabled workforce. And at the same time, you need to be planning that you will be running your own AI workloads to save cost and improve data sovereignty.
Now, let's just flip the script. When should a company absolutely not try to run their own model? What are the red flags that say stick with the API?
I'm not sure that I have any reasons that you wouldn't do it, because these are places where, unless you just don't have the expertise or you don't want to maintain the expertise, or you're trying to use the most bleeding edge models all of the time, right? Those would be the few use cases I would see. But in my experience, those aren't real use cases. So you don't want to always be using the highest end model for your tasks. It's an expensive waste of tokens. It doesn't produce better results. You don't want to always be sending your data across your firewalls or off of your systems, right? It makes a lot more sense to be prepared today to have that hybrid environment and that you will do some type of hosting. Because I guarantee you that if you're not asking that question right now, your CFO is going to be asking that question when they get the bill after a couple of months. They're going to all be excited and cheering that your engineers and teams are getting productivity boosts. That's fantastic. It's about to be baked in. Then you're going to be coming back to say, this is great, but can we really be spending, $10,000 per employee on token costs? Why don't I just buy $5,000 GPU for that employee, and then I don't, cut their costs in half? That's a very easy equation to make. And, you have to get into the mindset of AI workloads and AI productivity are not even fully baked in yet. We're still in an exponential curve where people are learning how to use these tools. And you have to be prepared that you have to provide access to the latest models, definitely need to do that, and be preparing that you're going to absorb the workloads that are much more background or linear or just part of your background system, because those are also going to be part of your new digital workforce.
Let's talk about cost, because that is one of the biggest factors. How do you help enterprises model out the true cost of self-hosted versus API pricing? On the surface, things might look cheap. What do people get wrong in that calculation most of the time?
A lot of times they're looking at the way they've done IT in the past and what it's taken to get things done. And so if you're thinking about, buying servers and it takes 6 months and it takes a long time to get them racked, or you don't have the people or the expertise, or the people that you have running those servers are already behind, they're overworked, you don't have enough of them, and you're not going to be hiring more, you really do have to reconsider how you're running and delivering your infrastructure processes to leapfrog where you are. You can't just take somebody who's already struggling to do the VMware migration evaluation project and hope, say, all right, finish that sooner. Move, I need you to do AI, or they can't get off of that because that's really important to do AI. The challenge is we need to be working, and this is exactly RackN's bread and butter. The industry as a whole needs to be working to dramatically improve how we execute infrastructure projects. That means being more flexible on the hardware. That means keeping the hardware up to date. It means improving your cycle time, dramatically reducing your onboarding time, being more flexible about which operating systems and platforms you run. All of that needs to go up faster, and the breadth and span and number of machines that each person in your organization, each operator is running, also has to improve significantly. Now, AI is going to help with that. There's no doubt about that. But if they don't have controls and processes and things that work out of the box, that's, AI is not going to help them get through that process faster. As a matter of fact, it can create more technical debt and crises by doing things that look okay, but are actually wrong or not sustainable patterns. This is where we see a really significant advantage for the RackN customers, because they show up with built-in process capabilities, proven aspects, and as they work with us, we help them stay in front of the bare metal pieces, the conformance, compliance, operating systems, the platform installs. All of those things are built in the box for us, which means that our customers then focus on delivering AI value or virtualization value. They don't have to worry as much on the other piece. And from a competitive perspective, I see that as absolutely essential for everybody that we're talking about here. They have to be able to execute projects without inventing new ways to do things or new architectures or new tools. You have to get to the result much, much faster than we've historically been able to.
Rob, thank you so much. The key takeaway here is clear. There is no one size fits all answer. It comes down to your organization's data sensitivity, control requirements, and whether you have got the infrastructure chops and talent to do it yourself. Thank you for joining me and breaking down the build versus buy decision for AI models. And as usual, I look forward to our next conversation. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And for those watching, if you are facing similar challenges around AI infrastructure and bare metal automation, make sure to check out RackN and its solutions. And don't forget to subscribe to TFIR, like this video, and share it with your team. Thanks for watching.